Good morning and welcome to Co-versations in EtobiCo. EtobiCo is a creative and collaborative community of office, industrial, and retail space occupiers in South Etobicoke, presented by the Downing Street Group. The way companies and its employees work has been undergoing significant change, which has only been accelerated due to COVID-19. With collaboration and connectivity being at the forefront of community and work, we've invited some of our partners, tenants, friends, and business associates, and so on to chat about business, people, the future of work, and frankly, just life and what we call Co-versations in Etobicoke. Our first guest is actually one of our clients, and we are also one of your clients. It's Bart Aniston, and his firm is Creative Partner. I'm just going to quickly read what you do.
Sure.
Okay, just as an introduction. Creative Partner is a creative strategist focusing on helping businesses make more genuine connections that lead to growth. My focus, given my introduction, is going to be on the genuine connections component of that statement.
Cool.
Like, what does that mean to you?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I think when I wrote that, we see a lot of people that are having a tough time to connect with brands. Brands are just entities, are just figures, and we want to break that down into human-to-human connections. I don't want to buy from Coke or Apple because of, I don't know the CEO's name or whatever, but I do want to buy from them because they sell me something that's attainable, a lifestyle that I want to be a part of.
Right, and so, look, in the context of current times, so many people are talking about people have been working remote. Like, COVID has kind of emphasized, look, the power of the internet is real. That's allowed people from all over the world.
100%.
You can be anywhere, you can connect with people, of course, right? But how has this changed what you do? How has this changed what your clients do? I know for us, I can see it in the, look, we're owners of real estate, people occupy space. You're a member of our co-working facility, right? But the concept of remote work is real. The concept of frankly people working from anywhere is real, right? How's that affected your clients, and is it more difficult to make those connections?
Yeah, there's so much to unpack in what you just said. You know, we're going through this for like the second or third time in human history in terms of total reconstruction of how we perceive this type of stuff. You know, the Gutenberg press 500 years ago rocked the world. That was its time's version of the internet. We're now going through that now, where social media and the internet is only about 15 years old, social media less than that. And we're seeing how it's being integrated into the workplace and with some of our clients at Creative Partner in a way that it's still the wild, wild west. There's so much more opportunity than ideas, that people can kind of make it whatever they want it to be. So you're seeing companies like, think of Tom, the shoes. They revolutionized a business model based on its philanthropic opportunities that they saw, and they leveraged social media at the newness of social media to get people to get engaged and not think about a shoe company as a brand, an organization,
right,
but to think of it as we're partners together, and I love your mission and I buy into what you're actually selling and not just buy the product of what you're selling.
Do your clients come see you in your space? Or
Sometimes.
is it all virtual?
No. Like sometimes some people come and see me here, but most of the time we do it most virtual, like 90% is virtual.
Right. You see, because what's interesting is the conversation. Well, I'm seeing online, and we're active on, let's say, LinkedIn, and you and I have talked about this first of all. So I'll bring it up in the context of here again is the future of work has been we've been talking about this for frankly since the internet came around, because AI and automation is affecting, frankly, so many blue-collar work, factory jobs, minimum wage jobs. What I'm seeing on LinkedIn now, is when people call it the future of work. I think I've told you I call it the future of maybe more white-collar business work, office space. It's the
100%.
future of office space, because the majority of people do not work in an office. People work in fields. People people are picking our food. People are
Yeah.
behind the desk at Tim Hortons. People are driving trucks, right? So the future of work is to me about all of that. It's about the re-education of people and to be able to work the jobs in the future, right? So that, that's one component I tend to I'm very interested in. But for us, it's possible that space occupiers are going to take less space than before because some people can work remote, right?
And I would say that it's kind of like what I said before, where it's the wild, wild west. We don't know what it's going to be, and if you were to speak to my grandmother and tell her what I would do for a living,
right,
she wouldn't understand because that job hadn't been invented yet.
Right.
So we have a lot of people that are scared of the unknown, or they're like, well, AI is going to take my job. I've been a trucker for this long, or I've been somebody who's been harvesting or a farmer for this long, and all these different robotics and different things are going to change. How will I pass this on to my kids? And I always tell people, I say there's so many opportunities that have not yet been invented, and that's what your kids and your grandkids are going to do. It's not a matter of you not having a place in society anymore because of the advancements of technology. It's more a matter of we're having a lot of growth happen in a lot of short amount of time. And that's exactly what the pandemic did. The pandemic did not change anything. It just accelerated everything because we're now headed in that trajectory. We're headed in a space where working from home and mobile work and less commuting and all that kind of stuff was inevitable. But COVID-19 changed the way we thought about work and just advanced it, accelerated it much faster.
Totally. I'll tell you, you also raised an interesting point, like you talked about your grandmother. So I'll often say to people that because technology moves quickly and exponentially, each generation will now be able to relate less to their children because technology moves quickly, right? So actually, frankly, it just makes parenting harder because now you're parenting in a world that you did not live in, right? And did not experience, which in itself, but that's another conversation, right? Yeah. But I think that is where us as humans, let's say we live for 80, 85 years, we think, well, change happens, quite slowly, and it's hard to accept change. But when you think about it, when you take a step back and you think about history and you think over hundreds of years or 1,000 years, you know that of course there's always change around. Technology is making things change faster. So certain jobs will not exist. Technology will make them not exist. So because of that, there's a lot of resistance to change, but I think part of it is understanding the change, adapting to the change, and then re-educating society to be able to live through that change. Because if the jobs from today are not here tomorrow, we got to make sure that people can work in that society for tomorrow. And it's not just about whether you're working remotely; it's just that the job might not exist. Period. Right? So this is a lot of the discussion that I'm seeing with respect even to real estate. That's what we do, is that can be a little bit of a black and white discussion because you can see some firms are saying we're all going to return to work. Other firms are saying you work from anywhere. Now, like most things in society, it's probably not black and white. There's probably some nuanced middle, right? Yeah. And it might also be directed to the individual. Some individuals cannot, we're all different. I've heard some people say, well, but how are you going to get a promotion if you're not at work? My response is, not everyone wants a promotion.
Very true. And and the longer we go down that path, maybe what we think were the key performance indicators for promotion will change and adjust. Maybe it will be result based. Maybe it'll be, how well you are able to manage the workload. Right now, we do a lot of interpersonal connectivity to manage how you get a raise, but that can change with time. So we're trying to put, what they say, like, a new wine in an old wineskin, right? So you're trying to put something that was new into something that is old. You have to completely change the frame of mind because we're going to be in a completely different space eventually.
And remember the purpose of work. The purpose of work is so you can eat, so you can have shelter, you can have clothing, right? So in the wider context, there is this concept called the dignity of work. Man and woman works, and therefore they feel good about themselves, they provide for their family, etc. That concept's important because for some people, putting food on your table, being able to take a vacation and retire, that's enough as well. And you can see especially I think with younger generations that have a shorter, have less wealth than previous generations,
100%.
they're starting to think, you know, maybe I got to build in leisure earlier in my life and not wait till retirement, right? So even how people view work-life balance, it's more blurred. The fact that we have a cell phone, the fact that the internet's with us, the fact that our work is with us and anyone can reach us at any time, everything's changed, right? So, I mean, it's so complex. It's not simple. I mean, they're interesting discussions.
Yeah, there's a big gap between what the previous generation had in terms of security and the societal agreement. You know, you work for 35 years at one job, you get yourself a nice gold watch, you retire, you'll have enough money in your pensions or savings to retire comfortably. And, you know, first of all, who's working at the same job for 35 years, who was born after 1996? You know what I mean?
Right. No, for sure.
Guaranteed you're not going to work at the same job for 35
And you might work longer because we're living longer.
We're living longer.
Right?
We have better science, better technology.
And people are
health.
saving less. Maybe you work till 70, 75 now. It's changed.
It's completely changed. And what people are starting to do is they're starting to be more savvy financially than the previous generation. You know, putting money early on, like you said, taking more vacations throughout my career and not banking on that somehow I'm going to own a home and sell it after living in there for 25 years and that will be my retirement. I don't own a home, right? So where is that going to come from? And I have to be more strategic, or at least think about it in a different light as a young person compared to somebody who had that opportunity to live in the growth of the middle class and all that kind of stuff.
For sure, I hear it. You know, I'm just going to do a quick little pivot here because you are a member of a co-working operation, right? Why co-working for you? I know what it means to us having a co-working facility. Why for you?
I think it's
why not conventional office space? Why not your own office?
Yeah, I did a lot of working out of a Starbucks when I first started this company, and it got really loud. It was inconvenience. You know, a lot of high school kids coming in around 3 o'clock to buy frappuccinos. The blenders are going.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm trying to close deals with people that I consider to be important, and it wasn't a good space. Renting my own office required a lot of commitment. It required a lot of stabilization, which I didn't have yet. We were still new. We were still starting up. You know, only a couple of good clients. And when you're just trying to figure things out, being in a lease where you have to pay $2,000-$3,000 a month, that's not necessarily feasible. You know, that's the money I want to put into my life to pay my rent and to pay for my life. Right. So when I found this office space, I went to a bunch of them. And this one had the best vibe in the sense of it was new, it was quiet enough, it had great amenities, you know, having a patio outside, being next to a community center really of different shops and vendors, having a great kitchen, lounge areas. Those are the things that were important to me, meaning like I could have a meeting real quick and jump into one of the phone booths. I can have a desk here. I can go work somewhere, you know, comfortably in one of the lounge areas or outside of the patio, and there's food nearby, near transit. All those things helped me make this decision. And the biggest thing that I saw here was the community of the members, that were here. So I've been able to connect with more people. I've been able to be a part of a community. It's very lonely when you work as a solopreneur and
in your own private space.
In my own private space. Even my employees, one's in Colombia, one's in Ottawa, one's in Toronto, one's in Calgary. So we've never met in person. That's also part of how it works. I've hired people.
Like that is wild.
Yeah, I hired during the pandemic. I've never met one of them before.
That's unbelievable, right? But again, that goes back to like the future of how people are working, right? And even when you talk about community, I mean, you know, we talk about what maybe the modern employee wants, and we're at work more than we are at home. You know, generally speaking, like obviously I'm not factoring in sleep time, right? And it has always been important socially and to have colleagues and stuff. What I find interesting about co-working is now your colleagues don't have to actually work with you. You know, your colleagues can be someone else. And maybe you never do business with them, but maybe they're just your friend. And now maybe there's someone that you can speak to them and all of a sudden, you know, it makes your day better, right? So, I mean, you're seeing so many large firms are in co-working spaces. They get flexibility of lease terms, et cetera, right? I mean, For us, it's just an extension of a wider community as a landlord that we can offer shorter term leases, community, et cetera. It fits with that. But I mean more from the occupier's perspective. You know, I think it gives so much more. You would be alone. Your 4 employees would all be in a 4-walled room without connectivity, right?
It fills the gap.
Right.
Because if I were to, let's say, take on a lease, long-term lease, 3-5 years, I also have to furnish it. I have to worry about, decor. Right. I also have to worry about like kitchen and what about the bathroom and the supplies?
Right.
What about the lighting and the hydro bill? What am I going to do about having meeting spaces and meeting rooms? And all of that type of stuff takes a toll. It fills in all the little gaps that if, let's say my team were to be all in the space together for a meeting or something, I don't have to worry about having a meeting space. I don't have to worry about, having water, having a place for washroom that are stocked up with supplies, all that kind of stuff. It fills in the gaps and it provides community. It provides the 4 wall.
And you can grow, contract. Let me ask you: Do your staff that work in those different locations, are they in a co-working facility? Are they working from home? Or they just work where they work?
Two and 3. Like I know 2 of them work in co-working spaces, and 3 of them work from home. They're younger.
Wow, I mean that is such a modern. You're a modern workplace story. I mean it's remarkable. Getting back to the concept of young people again, because again you're in the creative space. When I'm around you, I think young. I see young people. I wonder how many of them are, or just how many people in general, where work and life is becoming blurred, and I have tasks to do, I have deadlines. I'm going to meet them now, with my own timeline, as long as it doesn't negatively interfere with my employer, my fellow staff, etc. Sometimes I'll be by here for whatever reason because our office is next door, and I'll see, people are in this facility, but it's Friday night. It's 10 o'clock. Like my office is empty, right? But this office is not, right? And I think that's a generational thing, because this is a very, very young workforce in here.
100%.
Right?
I consider myself a hybrid, being born in the 80s, because I get a lot of the principles of the generation before me, and I was also relatively young at the advent of the internet and social media and all that kind of stuff. That being said, so in my mind, I'm still old enough to separate the two.
Right.
I'm trying to leave here on time and go home to have family time.
Yeah, so you have children, right?
I have children, so we don't use cell phone messaging to talk about work. We use something called Slack, so it's completely separate.
We do as well.
So we try to separate the work conversation from our personal conversation, so that you don't have to have Slack on your phone when you're at home. I feel there's also a side of me that is the new generation, where before we moved to EtobiCo from Brampton, we were talking about, should we go to Mexico for 6 months of the year and do that kind of stuff? Because
as a family,
because I have the luxury where my wife doesn't need to work. It's just me. It's all dependent on where my business is, and my business is remote. So I'm like, well, Mexico is really cheap to be. We could also go to the Caribbean. Again, flights were really cheap during the pandemic. So there's that side of it too. And I feel a lot of people now emerging into the workspace, that's kind of what they're looking for. They're looking for, hey, I work really hard from 7 in the morning till 9, 10, and then I go and I hang out by the pool and I go chill out, and then I'll do a little bit more work when I'm comfortable.
I'll tell you, we're also seeing, we have residential housing developments in southwestern Ontario communities. Mm-hmm. Those communities are booming. And you're seeing a lot of people from the GTA saying, look, my parents grew up, my parents are European immigrants. They grew up downtown Toronto. To afford a house, they moved us to Mississauga, right? Yeah. Now you're seeing people move to Niagara, Thorold, Barrie, Collingwood, right? The same concept, except that they can work from there, right? And also people have been priced out of the housing market, right? So it's kind of all, it's kind of all tied together, right? And it's going to be fascinating to watch, as
it's going to be pretty amazing what happens to the city in the next couple of years.
Because the city is under construction. I mean, we have some of the, I think, the most cranes in all of North America.
Yes, all in the world, right?
In the world, there you go. Right.
And I just saw an article from blog.to saying how employers are going to start requesting people to come down into the workspace. And I went immediately, once I saw this article on Facebook, I go right to the comments. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, who are they talking to? What employers are trying to get people back to come to work?
Some want to be back, probably some don't, right? That makes sense.
Some don't want to do it at all. I just think it's going to be a very, like I said, like a big reckoning of like, what do we actually want? Because society, like time itself, is just moving, and we're trying to sort ourselves out.
And change is happening, and change is always happening. When we don't think it's happening, change is always happening, right?
100%. That's why I mentioned, the Gutenberg press and all that kind of stuff. Even before that, we had writings and all that kind of stuff. So it's happening. It's whether or not you are going to jump on the train or you're going to wait for the next train.
Right. And whether you're flexible enough, probably. Yeah. Because change always requires flexibility, right?
Yeah. Just don't miss the full train.
Right. Well, listen, Bart. I'm going to stop us there. The format of this, as you know, is conversation. It's not an interview. I appreciate your time.
Awesome,
I appreciate what you do. Thanks for being on the show.
Glad to be here. Bye, guys.
Until next time, everyone.